All right, good morning. Welcome to Zomato Insider episode 2. I'm joined by Sven Almenning, the CEO and founder of the Speakeasy Group, and Ananas. Thanks for joining us, Sven.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And, for those of you that aren't familiar with Speakeasy Group, obviously they have the legendary Eau de Vie, Mjolnir, and my personal favorite, the Boilermaker House. So super excited to jump into a few questions in regards to, hospitality, your business, and especially around these times. So, to get your insights is going to be, very valuable for our listeners. So yeah, look forward to jumping into that. But before we get into it, I mean, how are you, Sven? How's everything? How you holding up?
I'm good. I think it's been, it's been a difficult time, I think, for everyone. And it's kind of ups and downs. Right now we're excited to be reopening, but also really concerned about how that's going to go, but personally I'm pretty good. Live in a wonderful place with a wonderful family, so you can't complain too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a business wise, how has the Speakeasy Group been affected directly during these last 3 months? Yeah.
We've been wiped out 100%. So we lost.
Wow.
We're not down 10 or 20. We're down 100%. We've had zero turnover for pretty much for 3 months. So yeah, it's hard, but that's all of hospitality. Unless people pivoted to or started picking up more takeaway and delivery stuff, we weren't allowed to have guests in our venue. So yeah, it's hit us pretty hard. But it's the whole industry, right? So I suppose the consolation there is that it's not something we've done wrong. It's just
exactly.
It's just a situation.
Everyone's been dealt the same hand, the same card. So it's
that's
difficult
right.
one. No, absolutely. And I guess so there's nothing you can do now, but pre-COVID, obviously you had a great and have a great reputation as a great operator. I'm interested to learn a bit more about that. I guess without giving away everything, what's your secret?
I'm not sure we have that much of a secret. We're pretty kind of open about what we do.
Yeah.
I think we've been very lucky in that we've been able to attract a lot of really good people to work with us, and I think that is the thing with hospitality. In the end, it's not the design of the venue, it's not necessarily the concept itself, it's the people who work there that deliver the experience, more so than almost any other industry. Like the person you deal with on any given night represents your business, and the reputation that we so have been lucky to build has been built on the back and on the support of great people. So I think we've been just very fortunate to be able to attract a lot of really good people to our teams.
Yeah. So I guess that's interesting that you mentioned that, because we see a lot of people, you said it's not necessarily the venue or the fit out, but you see so many people so many operators put so much effort into that part, and maybe not so much in the talent part, right?
Yes. Well, I think that's something that's the talent part is relatively new, I think, for our industry. If you go back 20 years in Australia, then every pub in Australia would have the same beers on tap. By state, right? So if you're in Victoria, you have a certain, but it was the same beers. You didn't have to look at a menu. You walk in Sydney, if you walked into a pub and asked for a Crown Lager, you could have a bottle of Crown Lager. And if you came in and asked for some BB on tap or whatever, they'd have it. You don't have to look at the menu. And the food was the same as well. You had fucking salt and pepper squid and wedges and sour cream and shit. That was everywhere. And so, as a result, you didn't really stand out on product, and you didn't necessarily stand out on staff. It came down to a lot to the environment, I think, that was created. But you fast forward to today, and people are out for different experiences. They want to, they go to different venues for different types of food and different types of drinks. And it is the team there that really delivers that point of difference. But it's been quite a change in the industry, and I think the easiest thing for people to do is to focus on we've always have done, if you like. So, you know, create that environment, spend a lot of money on the fit out. That's going to attract people in through, you know, the visual representation of it. But if the waiter that serves you, the bartender serves you is unfriendly, or the drinks and the food isn't very good, you're not going to come back despite the $10 million fit out, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you kind of got to get everything right. You got to create a friendly environment and a comfortable environment for people to be in, but also then back it up with the right service. And I think slowly but surely, as an industry, we're starting to focus more and more on developing our teams. I think it's a bit late, but hopefully, you know, we'll get better and better at it.
Yeah. Okay. No, great. And you know, just following up on that whole operational side, obviously you have the Ananas business, and I see if, you know, a couple of months back when this all started with the pandemic, you actually offered it for free. Talk to us a bit about Ananas.
Yeah, I mean, Ananas was created, so a lot of reasons why. I mean, one of the reasons we created was that as we grew our own business from, you know, one venue with 10 staff or whatever to 8 and nearly 200 staff, on that journey, we quickly realized that in order for us to deliver the quality service and product we wanted in a venue, we'd have to maintain a high kind of standard in terms of training. And doing that face-to-face, as people came into the business, was impossible. You know, like somebody starts, you know, 1 week, and then 2 months later somebody else starts, and then 3 weeks later somebody else comes in, and you can't wait until you have, you know, 6 new people before you start training them. You have to do it as they come in, but taking that time one-on-one is not feasible. It's not economical at all.
And
so
is that even hard, sorry to cut you off, is that even harder in hospitality because of the turnover and that sort of casual stuff? Or
100%. Hospitality is brutal on turnover, and what's considered, you know, I talk to people, you know, management and whatever. You might have managers who go, oh, you know, I've been here for 2 years, it's time for me to, you know, move on or do something else. I mean, 2 years in the corporate world is you kicking off your career with that business, right?
Exactly.
You haven't proven shit at that point. You're just starting out. Whereas people in hospitality considers 2 years a lifetime. And talking to, you know, big pub groups, the average tenure for a casual staff member is like 3 to 4 months.
Wow. That's nothing.
And so, so if you got, you know, 100 casuals in your business, and they're going to only be there for 3 to 4 months, you need to train 400 people a year. And if you make that 1,000, then you're training 4,000 people a year. And doing that face-to-face just isn't feasible. And that's why we put together a digital platform that can do that for you. And then obviously you can still do face-to-face training, but a lot of the crucial stuff will get covered off online. You can't beat hands-on, but you can, if you're not able to pick up every individual as they come into the business, you can do all the training online to begin with, and then when you have the opportunity, you can improve on this by doing some stuff face to face.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Yeah, no, it's great. And I guess, you know, during this time, like you said, some businesses have pivoted to, you know, like takeaway, delivery, that sort of thing. You haven't gone that route, but I mean, delivery has been a hot topic. Do you have any thoughts on that, and you know, the whole fees debate and that particular vertical?
Yeah, I think it's super. It's a super difficult thing. I mean, I'll maybe explain why we didn't do it. Then I have some thoughts on these platforms as well. But the reason we didn't do it was, we believe we are an experience-based business, and that our product is to deliver experiences and create, you know, fun memories for people, you know, through, you know, unique dining and drinking experiences. And putting our food and our drinks into a box and shipping it off isn't going to do that. And then we become purveyors of food and drinks. We just sell food and drinks. And once we start thinking of ourselves as, you know, a delivery mechanism for food and beverages, I think we are then going down a slippery slope. We're losing track of what we really are all about. So we had a variety of concepts about, you know, executing in people's homes and having chefs arrive but once we got cut down to like no visitors and everything was in lockdown, that just wasn't feasible for us. And we also felt that the price we would have to charge for the plate of food that arrives at your home couldn't be as much as we charge in a venue, because it's not the same experience. So problem that then became, well, producing this plate of food is more expensive than when we have a full restaurant, because we don't have economies of scale in the kitchen, etc. And then we have also the cost of the delivery. So for us to deliver that product at a price that would give value to the consumer, there was going to be no profit in that for us. We'd have to charge less, and the cost was going to be higher.
And outside of the economies of scale, was there also a fear of, you know, possibly compromising your brand? I mean, when you do put something like that in a box, or
100%. You know, especially for, say, Mjolnir, which is a Viking-inspired restaurant, you come in, there's, you know, the team is dressed up in fucking leather, and they're carrying knives, and it looks fucking dope. And they got Viking jewelry and stuff, and you get a free shot on arrival, and you have weapons that you choose from, and a swords and all. And you know, doing all that stuff, just delivering a box at home wasn't going to do that. And then you had the price problem as well that we were really concerned about. So we thought, you know, let's not. And we also kind of feared that if you were doing this while we were closed, when it was time to reopen, maybe you'd go to some other places that you hadn't been able to get food from while you were in lockdown. So all of a sudden we were scared that we'd get these really low return during this time, and then our guests would not come back because they want to go and explore other places. So it was a tough decision. So yeah, definitely were concerned about the brand damage, that's for sure.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. And then another hot topic obviously has been around the job keeper, right? And you know, we've got the casuals part, which is obviously prominent within hospitality, but then the other part is, you know, a lot of foreign workers and maybe skilled migrants work within hospitality, and you know, there's that technicality with the job keeper. Did that affect you in any way, or was that hard to make a decision?
Job keeper was maybe the one thing that, like, as a mentally affected us the most. The way it was initially announced by the government was that this was a stimulus kind of service for business, and it wasn't meant to be unemployment benefits, right? It's meant to be, this is to keep business running. But that's not really how it was. What it really was a way for the government, and we were basically being used as banks and as a Centrelink service, right? Where we would take up the upfront cost of paying everybody, have to wait 6 weeks to get refunded for that. And it was just really unemployment. If you have no business, there is no jobs to keep, right? And the criteria they put on it was, you know, you have to be with the business for a year, and you have to be a full-time by a certain date, and you couldn't be on a visa, all that stuff. Well, if they were trying to really keep us alive, then you would cover our staff regardless of where the fuck they came from, right? Like, you know, you would just do that. Like, if we have those stuff in our business, those are the stuff that we need in our business, and we needed them all to be covered. And I think in the end, you know, less than half of our team would have qualified for us. I think we had 80, 90 people on JobKeeper. And because a lot of them were, you know, casuals, they just came in. We're opening a new venue in Melbourne, so we hired 35 staff for that, and we didn't get a chance to open it. So all of those, 30 of those 35 didn't qualify because they've only been with us for 3 weeks, you know.
Yeah, that's jeez.
And then you had another venue in Sydney that we opened in February. So same thing there, any casuals there didn't qualify because that business just opened. And there was a lot of that stuff. And
devastating.
It was horrible. And I think the big problem is as well that the communication that goes out to the consumers and the media, if you like, through the media and to our staff, therefore, made it sound like it was a very easy thing and all employers should do it. But when you look at it from an employer's perspective, not only are you out of pocket, you know, in our case, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars that you pay out with a promise that you get it back from the government, but we have no, you know, we're not getting any work back for the money that goes out. So you have to have the cash flow available. Then each of those people, if they're full-timers, are earning annual leave as well while they're on JobKeeper. And when they quit, if they resign after the pandemic, which some people are doing because they're scared of staying in the industry and they want to find another job, it means that you are penalized because you have to pay out that annual leave that they've earned up while you're in lockdown. So now you're paying, you know, a week's worth of wages, almost as punishment for funding these payments while you were closed. So it was hard, but you know, we put them all on there. I thought we did what we could there. But I think, you know, moving forward, it is important that JobKeeper not only gets extended while we're down, but that it becomes more inclusive. So if it really is a stimulus package for the business, rather than a Centrelink replacement to keep the queues down and the admin down on that end, if it really is a stimulus for the businesses, then we need it to cover anyone that works there, regardless of where they come from, regardless of how long they've been with us, and regardless, you know, if I've hired a casual staff member who's only been with us for a week, I still need that person in the business. So if it really is a stimulus, how long they've been with us should not be important. It should just come down to whether or not there's somebody we need in the business. It's my opinion. And I think that's going to be, you know, almost make or break for our industry. If we are operating under limited trading or not hours, but limited trading in terms of capacity for an extended period of time, then we're going to need assistance with the staff. Otherwise, it's cheaper to just stay closed.
And you said something before about, I guess, people in hospital looking to leave. I mean, are you seeing that? People fear of the industry, like this is not the future for myself. I'm going to find something else. Massively.
We've had a couple of managers resign in our business, and I've spoken to a lot of people in the last few weeks, and there's especially senior people who have been in the industry for a long time, you know, got to a point where they're earning good money and good wages, to all of a sudden be back on $750 a week, whilst they have other friends who have become sales reps or moved into marketing or maybe into online booking systems. So still use your hospitality background, but have gone into more corporate roles. And to see them maintain their income during this time, I think has gotten a lot of people thinking, shit, this may not be a good long-term play anymore for me. And it's accelerating the exodus out of the industry.
Wow, that's scary.
Because I don't think it's the same. Like, you know, we stay in hospitality because of the lifestyle and the joy and the I suppose, like, making people happy. It's all this great positive reinforcement you get working in a restaurant or a bar, and it's unlike anything else. And you know, I never hugged a fucking bank teller on the way out of the bank. Like, I wouldn't do that. But do it in bars, you know, like, I'm not high-fiving. Yeah, I'm not high-fiving the people in my fucking Bunnings, you know. So I think going into these other roles may, I'm not saying it's short-term at all, but I'm not sure it's the.
But it's gonna be hard. They're gonna be hard to replicate that feeling they had, you know, in hospital, right?
Yeah, exactly. The reason the people are leaving doesn't correspond back to necessarily the reason they stayed in there for, but people got to make their own choice on this, right? But I am a little bit worried about that as well, because this industry did get hit harder than pretty much anything else. Like, we got hit hard, and
restaurants and the airlines just got destroyed. Yeah.
Exactly. And then a lot of industries that rely on hospitality, so like musicians and DJs, performance in general, a lot of, you know, farmers that catered directly for bars and restaurants got hit, but it came off that hospitality getting wiped out, you know, and had a massive effect out as well.
And then, and I guess, like, on a somewhat positive note, there is obviously restaurants have started to reopen, albeit with restrictions. You know, what are your thoughts on, you know, 20 people being allowed right now, and that as a business model, and the other restrictions coming up until we get to whatever that new normal is?
I mean, if I'm being, like, super honest, I would have preferred that we stayed closed. and until we were New Zealand, you know, and I think we were only a little bit behind. I kind of feel a little bit, you know, when you this is thing with when you have kids, the idea is that you offer the child a small piece of chocolate, and you go, you can have this now, or if you wait until after dinner, you can have the whole bar. And a young kid will, I'll take this in front of my nose, I want it now. And a slightly older kid will go, you know what, I prefer the whole bar, and I'll wait. And I kind of feel our government took the small piece of chocolate and didn't wait for the fucking bar. And so opening up, I'm all for the restrictions in that I don't think we should risk another outbreak because we want to get the industry started straight away. I think if we get another outbreak, the financial impact is going to be devastating to the point where we can't fix it. Whereas we could have gotten through an extra 2 or 3 weeks, you know, and then reopen completely. The longer the restrictions are in place for, the harder it's going to be for the industry. We can't operate on anything other than 100% capacity. You know, if the average profit margin or whatever, the net profit for the industry is hovering around 4 or 5%, which is what I'm being told, and you can only operate at right now, you know, 1 person per 4 square meters. If that's the only restriction, that means that most venues are still only operating at 40%.
Yeah,
if you're
that's right.
40%, but you're paying 100% rent and you're paying 100% wage cost, you're not going to make profit. It's impossible. Like, it's a mathematical impossibility.
It's difficult. So, and I guess a lot of restaurant owners are caught in that whole predicament right now, right? Do we stay closed? Do we open? You know, do we wait and see? It's very difficult.
It's super difficult. I mean, we're opening up not to make money, but to keep staff employed. So, you know, some people are opening up, especially those who've been doing takeaway and delivery, are reopening quicker because they already have business. But if you're not opening up soon, then your full-time managers who've been with you during JobKeeper can now go, well, hang on, I can get a full-time job somewhere else. So rather than now staying on $750 a week, they can go back to their actual salaries, right? Yeah. So we are reopening, you know, 3 to 4 days a week, most of our venues, mainly to keep people employed, and then hoping that the losses aren't going to be devastating, right? We're monitoring that every day. But there's a calculated risk, right, for maintaining the team's income and maintaining them on board. There's no hope of posting profits on these restrictions, but as they ease, hopefully there's a chance to kind of return to green.
And even and I mean, even tougher for, I guess, businesses like yourself, because I think you do make the calculated decision to have most of your businesses in the CBD. But of course, if everyone's working from home, you know, there's no traffic in the CBD. You don't have those afterwards drinks, and until the government says, you know, everyone can now go back, it's going to be difficult.
Very difficult. We've found this already. CBD venues are, and I've spoken to a lot of other operators. CBD venues are really hurting, whereas venues in the suburbs, if you like, are seeing more business. So, you know, we have the restaurant in Mjolnir in Sydney, which is in Redfern, which is not in the CBD. Our capacity is limited, but, you know, turnover is pretty decent there right now. Nothing, it would be a horrible week if it was pre-COVID, but, you know, coming post-COVID, we go, hey, this is pretty good. Like, it's better than expected. Whereas in the CBD in Melbourne, it's not great. And I think that's going to be, the longer the kind of work from home goes on, the harder it's going to be your surrec.
And in terms of like innovations, have you seen, and I mean, if it's hospitality, great. I mean, but I'm open to hear about other businesses, but, you know, are there any great innovations you have seen during this time?
I think there's a lot of things that were in the pipeline that's being sped up. So I think, you know, things around, you know, being able to order from your phone and having, you know, contactless menus and contactless payments and online training, a lot of stuff that what's going to happen is happening quicker, I think. I mean, as a business, I can't really reveal too much now, but we have a number of projects that we were considering launching later this year or early next year that are now being fast forwarded because we go, well, we need to find new revenue streams, because there's no guarantee that we'll be allowed to operate at anywhere near full capacity for a while. So we have to find other ways of bringing in money. So there's a fair bit of innovation going on, but I think most of it is just bringing stuff forward in terms of timeline,
And it's such a shame, especially for Melbourne, the scene is kind of built on confined spaces, but like everyone close together and, creates that vibe. And now when you have the social distancing, you even though you used to get 50 to 100 people or more in there, you can't do that now.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you look at the licensing, I think in Melbourne, the kind of standard rule for capacity is about, for every square meter, you can have, 0.75 people. So on a 4 square meter space, you have 3 people per 4 square meters. It's kind of how it used to work. Now it's 1 per 4 square meters. So that means you effectively, maximum capacity is 33%. And the longer that stays in, that'd be like saying to a retail store that, listen, you can open Monday, but you have to close by lunch on Tuesday. And that's all the business you can do, right? But you can be fucking rammed for those 1.5 days. And, it doesn't work. You can't operate on 30% capacity. It's impossible. No. Unless your rent comes down by, 70, 80%, and your food cost comes down and the wage cost, all that stuff would have to work in correlation, but it doesn't.
Yeah, talk to us, on that rent topic. So moving forward, not to say a pandemic's going to happen again, but, how important is negotiating lease agreements, negotiating with suppliers? Like, what's that going to look like in the future? We've
already started some conversations on new leases, and we've straight away we've come out and said we won't sign a single lease without a pandemic clause, right? Anything that happens that forces us to close will need to be rent free, and we're not even going to entertain signing anything without that in it. But during this time, if you've been like us, we've been closed for 3 months. That means that we owe our landlords now 1.5 months rent for every single venue that we can pay back over a period of time, or we got different deals. But the code of conduct was, if your business is done by 100%, 50% of rent has to be waived, so you don't have to pay it at all. But 50% of rent is deferred, so you have to provide your landlord with it. So it means that you're reopening with this debt to your landlord of that's more than 10% of the annual rent, and you're opening up with additional debt to your team for all the annual leave they've earned up during this time. So you've increased your debt, but you can't put many people in the venue. So it's, how are you going to pay it? It's a tough situation. So unfortunately, I think we're going to see a lot of venues permanently closing.
Yeah. I don't know how much. I'm thinking double-digit percentages for sure are going to be closed off the whole industry.
And I spoke to some really well-informed people about this the other day, and I don't know where they get the figures from, but they were estimating, 25% of hospitality to be gone by Christmas, which is that's a huge number. We employ hospitality. I think employs like 870,000 people in Australia. If a quarter of those jobs go, that's devastating.
Yeah, absolutely devastating.
Yeah.
And because I've been watching Sydney, Brisbane, obviously they opened before Melbourne. Social, what have you seen? You've obviously got Sydney venues as well. Are, social distancing, people seem pretty comfortable. Like they don't seem to be worried about health and safety. They're out there, they're waiting in lines, touching each other. Like, what have you seen at your venues?
Our venues, we're pretty strict. So we are enforcing the rules pretty hard. And we've had a lot of our guests come back to us, and they're quite grateful for that. Like I was reading my reports this morning, and a lot of our guests have come in and thanked us for maintaining the rules. What I've seen in Sydney so far, and anecdotally what I'm hearing, is that a lot of venues are just going fuck it, and they don't follow the rules. I think people that are going out aren't quite as worried, but not many are going out. So if you look at, say, Sweden, Sweden ran this different thing where they didn't really shut down anything. They just kept everything open. They put some small rules in place and left it up to people to decide. And you read about in the paper, it sounds like, people are going to bars and things are busy and restaurants are busy. I speak to people in Sweden, they're like, nobody's out. Right. So the restaurants and bars are dying slowly, bleeding out, because they're allowed to trade, so there's not a lot of support for them. And so it's this slow kind of bleed. And my feeling here from what I've seen so far is, some people are, let's go out, but the vast majority are not going out yet. So it's still not, there's some venues that are humming. I think restaurants are doing way better than bars. But I think those that are going out are less worried about social distancing.
I think the food component, I think, just makes it very difficult for any bar. It's just like, where do you begin?
And also, even just like, even in Sydney, where there's no requirement for food, restaurants are just busier because you make the plan to go out for dinner now, and it's a smaller risk, probably, people feel, because they're sitting at the same table, they're just for their own group, there's distancing between tables. Whereas bars work differently, has a different vibe to it. Some people go there to meet people and socialize, not to stay with your two friends. But our bars operate like restaurants, so we already have the table service and the distancing built in. But yeah, it's definitely I think it's going to take a while before people change their habits and start going out. And like you said, the bars rely a lot on after work business, whereas restaurants are more planned occasions with friends. And that'll still happen regardless of whether you work in a city, So I think that's going to take longer for bars. We're not going to really see them bounce back until people are returning to work.
Yeah,
which may never happen.
Yeah, a lot of businesses are actually pivoting to like completely work from home or a few days. So who knows what that means for the future of CBDs around the world, really.
Well, I mean, I've had this, talked about that for a long time. I think the CBD as we know it wasn't going to last very long. I think, regardless. I mean, once we get the augmented reality, gets better, and you can sit around a board table with your goggles on and feel like you're sitting with people, we'll quickly start losing the CBD, I think. But COVID, I think, is gonna, like I said before, it's simply speeding up trends things that were gonna happen anyway. It's just accelerating now.
Yeah, and look, and one of those trends is something, us as Zomato, we were looking to get into before, table ordering, which is now moved to contactless dining. And obviously there's a few people doing this, and, it's our way of, looking to get confidence back in the industry. Obviously we can't survive as well without restaurants, but what are your thoughts on contactless dining?
I think contactless, there's a lot of I think benefits to it. And especially if you're in an environment where your staff costs are going up and your turnover is going down, it's a good way to save some money. I think it will take away a lot from experience-based businesses if you don't have the team there to communicate. There's a fair bit of research around, like, the spend per head does go up quite significantly through contactless dining, because you're not waiting around for people to come to your table to take an order. But I also think it works better, I imagine, at a fast food place or the kind of bars that we used to have, where you walk in and they got our chicken parma, they're gonna have fucking veggies and sour cream, like, where it's more generic food and it's not, you don't really need a person to explain it to you. I think it's going to be really amazing for them. I don't think it's suitable for fine dining restaurant.
But it'll be interesting to watch, I guess, you know, if it does develop to the point where, let's say, casual dining, fine dining, where you can put tasting notes and recommendations on the phone. It'll be interesting to watch how consumers behave to that, you know, what they think, if they think it's better, if they think it's worse, and how that whole thing plays out. Because maybe you can actually add a few layers, you know, on a phone that maybe, someone can actually review in their own time. Yeah.
Well, 100%. Like, I think there's a lot of, you know, there's elements of this that I want to explore for our venues. I've been talking to people overseas about systems available there and how we can use them. And there's some of these versions I really love. And hopefully we'll be putting into our business as well. But the thing that, from an ideological perspective, not from a business perspective, that I'm concerned about is hospitality is kind of the last bastion in some degree in terms of human face-to-face interactions, right? Yeah. Like, you know, at work now, people are working from home, they're doing Skype calls or Zoom calls or, you know, Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, whatever it is, video calls, right? Instead of calling your friends or visiting your friends, you're fucking texting them. You know, plans are being made virtually all the time. But the one fucking place that takes place face-to-face, human-to-human, is in bars and restaurants.
Yeah, no, fair point. Like I said, interesting space. It'll be, I think, you know, we'll take a lot of guidance from, I guess, how people react in the restaurant, right? And I think they will quickly determine whether they're getting what they feel is value of that experience. So I think it's a responsibility on both sides to make sure they deliver that, so people still feel like they're having that magical experience at a restaurant.
I think this is going to happen. I mean, it's already happening, right? I think ordering via, you know, whatever it is, apps or platforms or whatever the heck it is on a phone, it's going to happen, and paying for it's going to happen, and you know, paying without receiving the bill, like an Uber account, is amazing. I think that's a big thing, you know, like you simply order your food and when you leave, it comes off your bill and it comes off your card, and that would speed up service a lot. We lose a lot of time closing out
operationally, right?
The transaction, and so there's a lot of good stuff there. But ideologically, so from a business perspective, we'll be doing it for sure. But ideologically, I'm a little bit opposed to it.
That's for sure. And I guess the industry, the next 3 to 6 months, you know, what are your predictions? What do you know, how do you see things playing out the rest of the year?
It's very difficult. If we don't get another wave, right? If we become New Zealand, if you like, if we get this down to zero, I think we'll see a relatively quick rebound. You know, there's been hardly any deaths there. You know, we have 0.4 deaths in Australia per 100,000 people. In terms of deaths per capita, so 0.4 per 100,000. America, I think, is setting at 34. The UK is like 52, 54 and we are 0.4. So, you know, here there's not been a lot of people who's been affected. There's not been a lot of people who's had loved ones. Of course, every single case is tragic, but there's most of us kind of got through that without any physical and, you know, and without losing family. And I think it's a bit like the lotto, like the way the lottery tickets work. Apparently, it's like the biggest weeks in lotto aren't after the $50 million first prize, because that was one motherfucker that won that. It's when it's, you know, loads of people winning small prizes, because everybody then knows someone or heard about someone who won a bit of money.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's when people go back and fucking buy the lotto. So I think if you go to the UK and the US, where you have a really high per capita mortality rate, people will be more cautious, I think, because they know people that died or they had friends, etc. Whereas here, there's so few that I think confidence will return quickly as long as the second wave don't come. We'll be missing out on tourism. And because some venues, a lot of venues most likely won't survive, the ones that are still standing probably will have a better chance of growing back their customer base, because there's people are coming back out, but there's less competition. If we have a second wave, I'm not sure. I think 25% of businesses closing is crazy optimistic. You know, if you have a second wave, I don't think many can afford to close twice.
No, that's scary to even think about, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I just don't. If you're gonna do this again, I don't think the government can afford to step in and do the bailout the way they did this time. And without it, there's no way, unless you have heavy backing, that you're gonna come out of it. It's almost cheaper to close and start again, you know.
Yeah. Well, we hope you don't get to. Hope you don't get to that. But hey Sven, I'm gonna end with three lighthearted, more fun questions. Obviously, you know, Zomato, we in the restaurant industry, bar industry as well. So I'm gonna start with what's your favorite restaurant or bar outside of the Speakeasy Group?
Oh, yes, tough one. For me, I got loads of bars that I love going to, but these days, because I'm old, I mostly do go to my own. I do love going to the Bulletin Place in Sydney, small bar owned by friends of mine. I'm a huge fan of Lobo Plantation in Sydney as well. It's a brilliant bar.
Great place. Yeah.
Awesome. But I think, you know, maybe the bar that's made the most biggest impression on me when I was down in Melbourne was Above Board, which is out so off Smith Street. Yeah. And I just love that intimate little venue. I think it's brilliant. Nice. And as for restaurants, Cumulus is amazing. You know, I think that's just a brilliant place to go. So I go there a bit when I'm in Melbourne. Like fuck, there's so many. There's a Mexican restaurant here in Avalon where I live called Alma, and as soon as they reopened, and my wife and I were down there on the weekend and just drank as many margaritas as we could. Still be able to walk home after lunch. So yeah, I love that place too.
Cool. And if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh shit. That's a tough one. I'd love to have dinner with Snoopy, but you know, that'd be fun. Snoop Dogg. But on the other, or Elon Musk. I think Snoop Dogg or Elon Musk. Very different dinners.
Wow, yeah, man, they're two interesting cats. I mean, like, Snoop Dogg, I'm sure it'll be a lot of extra activities and good fun. And
I think having a lot of dessert.
What's that?
You'll be having a lot of dessert, I reckon.
For sure. And Elon's, the way his mind just functions would be fascinating to have an hour with him, right?
Oh, that'd be incredible. Yeah, he would be amazing. I've only ever tried to have, I did book a ticket once to have dinner with Diego Maradona. And a big idol when I was a kid, but it got cancelled. I can't remember, it was a couple of years ago now. That's the only time I've attempted one of these things.
That would have been cool. And then last one, if you're gonna order a drink to impress someone, what would you order?
Dude, if you're at ODV, because I think the thing is with the drinks is that I don't think any classics anymore necessarily impresses. But I'd say if you're in ODV, the Espresso Sabayon it's a cocktail we put on the menu 10 years ago, and it's still there, and it's still our #1 selling cocktail 10 years later. So that's pretty impressive. But if you're out and about in a bar and you don't know the list, asking for a tequila añejo old fashioned, it's a pretty dope drink. And it requires a bit of explanation why you're drinking tequila old fashions, but they're fucking good.
No, I love it. Thanks for the recommendation. Well, look, man, that's it. Thanks a lot, Sven. It was great to get those insights and your thoughts. Really enjoyed speaking to you, and hope to catch up soon.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Okay. Cheers, mate.